The second resolution was the Minister Lamula was to deal with the issue of transfer of prisons to Kokstad prison. There was a problem there. They will be transferred and unknowingly to the team and the investigating office, and somebody will take them back to where they come from and continue with their activities. So the minister had to deal with this, that those that are taken to Kokstad, they stay in Kokstad. Fourth one was that, third one, resolution was the success of the PKTT would be communicated in the media briefing to be held on behalf of the IMC. The media briefing eventually took place on the...
So that is Bheki Cele, and he basically keeps saying disbanded by who? Disbanded by who? The reason why he keeps saying disbanded by who, the evidence leader had indicated to him that Cele in his testimony had indicated that in fact the PKTT was disbanded in 2022, and as a result thereof subsequent actions by the PKTT was in fact illegal. But Cele's testimony indicates that this could not have been the case, because September 5th, 2023, he indicates that there was an interministerial meeting where 4 resolutions were taken. He actually indicates who was present at the meeting, and one of the people that were present at the meeting is Ronald Lamola. He indicates that one of the things that Ronald Lamola had to attend to, amongst many others, was he needed to engage the NPA on the activities of the PKTT so that there could be collaboration between the two departments. He also indicates that there was an issue of transfer of prisoners from Kokstad, and then they were then being transferred back to the original prisons, and this was creating a problem. He also indicates that there was communication about setting up a meeting to give the public feedback with regard to the progress of the PKTT. He also then indicates that the PKTT was basically continuing its operations, and therefore disbandment in 2022 could not have happened because nobody seemingly was aware of it. He further indicates that they only became aware of it on the 31st of December when they were drinking and dancing. And this is then a reference to the end of the year parties, that in fact he became aware of this when he was celebrating the end of the year. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody foresaw this coming. It was unusual. It was unpredicted, and it was basically a weird thing to be happening at this particular juncture in time, not only for the operations of the PKTT, but also for the time itself. It was just weird. And I will say this, I am pleasantly surprised by his participation and his response to the questions, especially given what we witnessed last week or in the days preceding today with regard to Senzo Mqunu, where he was evasive. Even last week with Sibiya, I mean, I was just irritated, you know. So I will say this, I am pleasantly surprised by his responses, and I think he's very much available cognitively as well. He also makes an argument with regard to the rationale behind the disbandment of the PKTT does not follow, because he makes an example of them investigating matters that were related to people like Mpofana. If you remember the case of Mpofana was a political person, so he was being appointed in a political position in KZN, and he's the guy that basically set his family alight, because he was trying to... So what was happening is that if you had received some kind of a threat as a result of the political office that you occupy, you would receive a certain amount of money in order for you to beef up security at your home and whatever the case may be. And Mpofana wanted this money, but he was not actually receiving any kind of threat, but he needed to make it look like there was going to be, or there was a threat imminent on his life. He basically orchestrated a fire or an arson attack at his home and ended up burning not only his house but his family as well. And he's basically the only person that got out alive because he knew what was going on. They were investigating such matters, right? amongst many others, because there were people that were actually in political positions that were not only being threatened, others were actually hurt and harmed as a result of the position, because people were quarreling to occupy these positions. Others were quarreling so that they could increase their constituency. So this was deep, and the fact that this disbandment of the PKTT was just happening randomly at the end of the year didn't make sense. He also speaks about the letter that was written by Mary DeHaas. Now, Mary DeHaas she's a researcher. She's a political researcher. And she had written a letter to Senzo Mqunu, if I'm not mistaken, advocating for how it is unnecessary for the PKTT to still be in existence. Now, I do not understand why Mary DeHaas is actually involved in this particular matter. And from my understanding, I can also figure out that Cele also doesn't understand why is Mary DeHaas involved, because Senzo Mqunu makes the argument that in fact the letter or the communications from Mary DeHaas are part of what drove his reasoning for the disbandment of the PKTT. So that is basically, in a nutshell, what he's been saying up until now. I think we are at the backdrop of also receiving the judgment of Kat Matlala. So Kat Matlala, as you guys know, was in court earlier on this week. He was in the High Court appealing the denial of his bail in the lower court. He basically wants to do what Katie Molefe did. He is basically doing, and if you remember correctly, Katie Molefe's attorney made the argument that Katie Molefe was charged in terms of Schedule 5 and not Schedule 6, and as a result thereof, he is entitled to receiving bail. And that was basically the whole basis of the argument as to why it is that the guy received bail. Because I know a lot of people are like, why did this guy receive bail? However, on the backdrop of him receiving the bail and us now understanding the whole nuance of brown envelopes as reiterated by witness B, it starts to make you wonder exactly what's going on. Did the guy get bail as a result of Schedule 5? Or did the guy get bail as a result of a brown envelope? And I will tell you one thing. When I heard the story of the brown envelope, one thing in mind kept on playing. I'm going to try and insert the clip of, what's his name? Kat Molefe. In his last appearance in, I think it's at the Home Magistrate Court, where he was lastly denied bail, he kept on stroking his lawyer. And I was looking at it and I was like, something is off with this. I didn't know what was wrong with it, but something was off. I'm going to look for the clip because I don't have it anymore, but I'm going to try and insert it, where he kept on stroking